Hello everyone, some of you might be familiar with this sort of thing, this Constellation Mars Lander. This image is from a Wired article in 2001, NASA's Mars Design Reference Mission Goes Nuclear, and there are various other renditions of this. I've been meaning to do this for quite a while, even though I'm not a fan of the Constellation program. I believe it was just a bunch of pretty pictures that were covered to cancel the shuttle program without any attempt at getting money for all this or any attempt at follow through. But anyway, we'll set that aside for now. And I'm going to try to make one that I feel is coherent. There are a few objections I have to the way that they have it. It's basically meant to be a constrained thing, a volume constrained thing, meaning that it's supposed to fit inside sort of a fairing deal like this. And probably, I mean, I don't know if you wanted to separate off at this point, but that's one option, but I don't like that option. But a lot of people, when they make their renditions of it, sort of neglect that that's how it's supposed to go. So they have the thing poking out. Sorry, whoever made that. But yeah, I mean, noble attempt, but that's defeating the purpose. This is closer. This one for Kerbal Space Program, that's an Orion spacecraft in there. But here, I'm curious about what all the tanks are for. Why do we have so many tanks on this thing? That's not really what it's... I mean, well, this is sort of very tanky. We'll need to figure out exactly how much we need, but I don't think it's going to be that much. As long as we're using the parachutes to help slow down, and we're supposed to, right? So here, I'm concerned about the placement of the engines. We've got 4 apparently here, but then there's 2 more here. And then, so the center of mass must be here? How is that? It seems pretty heavy back here. There's a mobile fission reactor there, which I also, I'm not entirely, I think I'll go with solar panels for a while. But here, this one with the habitation module in the center, looks a little bit more balanced, but there's a sneaky little engine here, apparently. The ones on this side are not balanced. So, every single version of this seems different. This one is sort of going with the asymmetric deal there, but really, every single version of this seems different. Let me show you the version that I've been working on, which I call the Wedge Mars Lander, for reasons that I will make clear. So here it is. My first objection was that they have this Orion-type pod right here, but we don't really need it to be shaped like that because it's ascending through Mars's atmosphere, and Mars's atmosphere has only 1% the thickness of Earth's atmosphere. So do we need it that streamlined or a cone? It's hardly streamlined anyway. It's pretty bulky as far as cones are concerned. After all, it's meant to get drag on the way down. It's not super great at being aerodynamic in the first place. So I've created this wedge. And, you know, we sort of have a docking port thing at the top. We'll have the actual docking port there. And this is my main innovation because it maximizes the crew room. We've got the 4 seats in there. There's plenty of space for stowage and such. They don't usually spend much time in here. But also, I have no idea what the heck the rest of the stuff was for, and why it had so much tankage mass. It depends on how heavy these modules are, but if you make them light enough, then maybe you don't need that much. So what I have here is, this is a habitation module, and that's why we have a tunnel here. It retracts so that the ascent portion can lift off. And then we have here the rover bay and other supply bays. So it opens up and there'll be a ramp going down. And then we probably should have the floor there. It's not supposed to go all the way down to that level. But rover bay and other things that they can carry and roll out. So that's that side. Now, keeping it balanced is going to be tricky, but we're going to have additional engines and fuel on the bottom of these. And then you can see how this all works. It's packaged like this. It's very much meant to be in this volume, though with some leeway here and there. And this volume is the payload bay of the space shuttle. So I'm actually going to try to launch this in the space shuttle. and we need it to be within the space shuttle's capabilities. So dry, not necessarily with the fuel in, it needs to be less than 26 tons. Maybe we can put some fuel in and still make it work out. I mean, it's physically, when you think about Space Lab, I mean, it's basically a little bit more than Space Lab. And if you have the oxygen tanks empty, for instance, which would be the heavy ones, it would be in relatively good shape. So, yeah, it's like one of those modules, and I think it can work out for us as long as we don't make any mistakes as far as calculating. And of course, with more recent materials, it might be even better. But you can see here, we've got these that act as air brakes, deployable air brakes, as well as basically our landing legs. So they're dual air brake landing legs. That's how it is. And they go like that. And that's my second innovation. First innovation, the wedge shape, which makes this all fit better. It could be wider, but I wanted to give it some clearance. And then the second is these kinds of things. These panels here, and well, especially these that cover the engines on the ascent vehicle, but these panels here fall off. So when it needs to fire its engines and ascend, those will definitely be off. But they might be off for descent as well, depending on whether we want these engines available for descent. So we'll have to get rid of these panels, and then the 4 engines that we have on the ascent vehicle can fire. I didn't feel a need to have the super big nozzles. I think at that size, the mass of the nozzle would actually hurt us as far as the extension is concerned. And it really depends on what kind of engines we're using there. I bet they were thinking of pressure-fed engines, but if we're using BE7s, and I'm definitely going Hydrolox here, we're probably going to have a tighter engine. So that's what I'm figuring here. We're going to have smaller engines, and that's because of the chamber pressure, and so we can fit it with a smaller nozzle, which will be lighter. And there might be engines on these as well, and also fuel tanks. I just have to figure out exactly how much fuel I need. And so I'm gonna sort of work backwards from the intended dry mass of this based on the shuttle's capacity. I'm gonna work through it and make sure, I mean, this should be able to fit within that, and then see how much fuel I need for descent. The descent fuel will be outboard on these, and of course the ascent fuel has to be on this on its own. So that's the notion here. And if it turns out that this ends up being a little bit too heavy like this, I'll just move the seats a little bit tighter and squeeze it in a bit. But I think we can actually make use of the volume better like this. Now, if somebody knows what they were planning to actually have over here, I mean, some of the images seem like they're just packed with fuel, or I don't know what they're packed with. But the intention here is that this side is pressurized, by the way. The rover bay is not. The rover bay, this side is not pressurized. That's my intention there. But I just don't know what those images were intending to do with a lot of the lander, because I don't think it's necessary just to have it all packed with fuel. The descent part, you only need about 400 meters per second for descent. Maybe it's making its own transfer or something, but that's not going to be my intention with this. I intend for it to dock to its transfer vehicle. I don't think it's reasonable to have this lander make its own transfer. But if we take a look again at the images on the web, I mean, it really doesn't tell me what is going on this side and this side. It shows me a rover here. It shows me the fission reactor, but I don't know what's on top there. So I don't think anybody else knows either, judging from a lot of these renditions. So I figure habitat area and rover bay is basically the idea, or general cargo bay. And our hatch is here. So this will be either, will be depressurized, pressurized, and they can go in and out of that. That's basically, or we could just have the back end be the airlock. So you can tell me what you think about this idea. And I'll figure out the numbers and sort of model it in Kerbal, and then figure out the rest of the tankage, which again, I'm confident that we can make this work out for us. We are going to be using parachutes to help us slow down. These will hopefully act like air brakes so that we can slow down properly. And also, they could be used as control surfaces, like from there to there, if we want to do it sort of Starship style. But it's got to take a lot of doing. At least I've got most of the modeling done, and that is the notion. So tell me what you think about it, and I'll get your thoughts in the comments below. So with that, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do press like. If you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them in the comment section below, and I'll see you next time.